Every monument ever built, every religion ever founded, every war ever started was actually the answer to the same question. What happens if I cease to exist? Nobody ever asked you this question. Nobody ever taught it to you. But for thousands of years, every civilization has wrestled with it, and the answers they gave still shape the world you live in today. Thousands of years ago, one of the first great answers to this question was built in a desert. 2560 BC. Tens of thousands of people are working in the desert of Giza for years, for decades. Massive stone blocks are being carried, carved, stacked on top of each other. Why? Because Pharaoh Khufu wanted to be immortal. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs were considered both king and god, and gods were not supposed to die, but bodies decayed. To resolve this contradiction, the Egyptians developed the most comprehensive anti-death system in history. Mummification, preserving the body so the soul could return. Pyramids. According to Egyptologists, these step structures served as a stairway for the dead pharaoh's soul to ascend into the sky. The Book of the Dead, a guide describing which paths the soul would follow in the afterlife and what dangers it would face. An entire civilization's economy, art, and architecture was built around conquering death. And this wasn't exclusive to pharaohs. Ordinary Egyptians also left food, objects, and writings in their tombs, in case the soul returned and needed them. A society so afraid of death that it spent its entire productive capacity, its entire creative energy, on denying it. Was this a coincidence, or was it something deep in the nature of humanity? In 1973, an American anthropologist made a very bold claim. Ernest Becker, in his book The Denial of Death, argued this: a large part of human civilization exists because people cannot accept their own mortality. The book won the Pulitzer Prize the following year. Becker couldn't be there to accept it, because when the book was published, he was already on his deathbed. He was 49 years old. Becker's argument was this: human beings are the only creatures capable of grasping their own finitude. This awareness creates a deep existential fear. And to cope with this fear, people cling to two things: meaning and permanence. We build temples, we write epics, we invent gods, we start wars. All of it is the answer to the same question: let something of me remain even after I die. Becker called this the Immortality Project. So how did this project look throughout history? And Egypt was just the beginning. Now move forward 1,000 years. You're in Europe, the 12th century. Your life is short. Plague comes, war comes, famine comes, and every day, every hour, one question follows you: what will happen after I die? The church had a clear answer: sinners burn in hell, the good go to heaven. But the path between was dangerous and required effort to have sins forgiven. From the 1st century onward, the church announced that those who contributed to building cathedrals would have their sins forgiven. People built churches because it would ensure them safe passage after death. The cathedrals you visit in Europe today, Notre Dame, Chartres, Cologne Cathedral, these were construction projects that lasted centuries. Sometimes one generation laid the foundation, the next put on the dome. You gave your life to building something you would never see completed. Why? Because the fear of death drove you that far. But not every society dealt with death this gently. Some cultures developed a different strategy: accept death, but load it with meaning. In Scandinavia, according to the Vikings, dying in battle was the most honorable end, because those who died this way went to Valhalla, Odin's Hall, the heaven of warriors. According to historians, this belief psychologically strengthened Vikings in battle. A warrior unafraid of death had a great advantage over one who feared it. In Japan, the samurai wrote in the Hagakure, Bushido is realized in the presence of death. When forced to choose between life and death, choose death. This wasn't a promotion of suicide. A warrior who had already accepted death could act more bravely, more freely. And now let's look at perhaps the most striking example in history, the Aztecs. In this empire built in Central America, human sacrifice was a religious necessity. But why? According to the Aztecs, the sun needed blood to rise into the sky each morning. The gods had originally created the universe by sacrificing themselves. Humans were obligated to repay this debt. This belief system reversed the fear of death. Being sacrificed was not shame, but honor. Being killed in battle was the most valuable death. Sources show that some sacrificial victims even volunteered for this role. An entire civilization placed death at its very center. Death was not an ending, it was what sustained the universe. 221 BC, the man who unified China under a single roof for the first time declared his empire. His name was Qin Shi Huang. This man, who held the greatest power in the world, was still afraid of one thing: death. He spent the final years of his life having alchemists brew elixirs for him. He sent expeditions searching for an immortality potion. According to historians, the mercury-based mixtures given to him likely accelerated his death. The man chasing immortality most probably died because of his immortality medicine. But the story didn't end there. From the very first years of his reign, Qin Shi Huang had begun constructing a vast underground tomb for himself. Inside, he placed not just treasure, but a complete army made of stone. More than 7,000 terracotta soldiers, each with a different face. This terracotta army was meant to allow the emperor to continue his reign in the afterlife. Death for him was merely a transition, and after the transition, he would still rule. Today, this army still stands. The emperor never found immortality, but his terracotta soldiers have kept him alive for 2,200 years. Now let's ask this: what about us? We no longer build pyramids. We don't believe that constructing cathedrals will erase our sins. We're not waiting for Valhalla. But this is where Becker's theory says something very interesting. The tools changed, the root didn't. Today, immortality projects look different. Wanting to be famous, having your name continue to be mentioned, building a great company, leaving a permanent mark, gathering millions of followers, proving your existence, even having children, the desire to continue genetically and culturally. In 1986, 3 social psychologists took Becker's theory into the laboratory. In their experiments, they asked people questions that reminded them of their own deaths. Just that. And then people's behavior changed noticeably. They clung more tightly to their own cultural values. They found those who were different more threatening. They felt more connected to their own group. They repeated this experiment in hundreds of different forms. The result was consistent. A stimulus that reminds you of death makes you cling more tightly to your own beliefs, and this mechanism explains the foundations of nationalism, religious violence, and group conflict throughout history. When you feel threatened, existentially, you cling more tightly to a system of meaning that will protect you, and everything that threatens that system begins to look like an enemy. Ernest Becker tells us something very uncomfortable. Humanity's greatest works, pyramids, cathedrals, epics, art, science, most of these were born from a fear. But he also says this: humanity's greatest acts of violence were born from the same fear. Fear both built and destroyed. And according to Becker, the only way out of this spiral is to stop suppressing the fear, to carry the awareness that you are mortal, because facing it honestly rather than running blindly makes you both freer and more human.